like fighting number 2.
No words, I have the best words. An enormous, really an enormous...
Criminal, look, wait.
Obama.
I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges.
Deliberately, willfully, and with total premeditation.
The demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defied the seat of justice. It's defiled, right? See, I can't see it very well.
The diversity lottery.
And God bless the United States.
Our army manned the air. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports.
Made a pivotal, really,
The Mueller report, I wish, covered the oranges.
combat infantrymen. You know, we just set another stockrocket. You saw that, right? To be a sanctuary. 10,000 known or suspected gang members.
Would I approve waterboarding?
Yesterday's a hard word for me.
I know words, I have the best words.
You know, I told the U.S. Marshals to go get the man who killed another man.
Very large a brain.
I know words, I have the best words.
Real bipartisan solutions.
No perverts.
Late being a very positive word in this case.
I know words, I have the best words.
No perverts. What happened to the server? To me, Corona means Italy. The Burmese executives. So this Burmese, they say, pronounce it Burmese.
Right. We're getting started. 9, 8, and I have to stop it before the counter starts over again. It's very depressing. 3, 2, 1. I just jumped to it. Hi, good morning, everybody. How are you? Happy Friday. Got some special guests, second hour, for the record. We've got True Blue Politics. We've got Karen and Anita from True Blue Politics are going to be on the show. They cover a lot of stuff on their podcast, but most recently they've been dealing with kind of the biggest domestic terror threat in the United States being white supremacist groups. And I've talked about this a bunch, and you'll see a particular dodge around this topic. And I'll bring it up with them and see if it's been something they notice as well in the right-wing media sphere, and certainly amongst the politicians, that, you know, Biden or the DOJ or the FBI or our government thinks that the biggest threat to America is white supremacy or something like that. Now, no, not at all. First of all, it's the biggest domestic terror threat, meaning that white supremacist groups with that ideology are the number one threat. As far as people getting together to cause terrorist damage from inside the United States. Now, do we have Muslim groups and black separatist groups and black supremacy groups? They're number 3 on the list, and it's a close third, I would like to say. But it's interesting how they will say, "Oh, our government thinks that that's the biggest threat." Like, no, our government thinks the biggest threat is coordination between Iran, China, and Russia to undermine all Western economic and technological advancements. Basically, destroy the internet and slam the door on growth worldwide, so that they can take over it using brute force, which is the one tool that they still have and like to use, while the rest of us are trying to move towards that Gene Roddenberry future. Like, we need. I was about to say we need a better name for it, but I think actually there might be sort of a sweet silliness to Roddenberryism, because Star Trekism, I think, just leaves out some of the other great sci-fi that we've had. But Roddenberryism, the idea that eventually we'll even get along with the Klingons, if in the immortal words of Rocky IV, if I could change, you could change, everybody could change, right? So, anyways, the main thing though is that there are a bunch of people who are like, that's a lot of work, and emotionally I'm not very interested. So how about we just go back to clubbing each other to death? Like that's the mentality of that is the single biggest threat in the world. Like, that's why China's building their own fucking internet, so they never have to so their people can never get access to ours and go, wait a second. Right? That's it. Republicans to the Klingons. No, I would guess they would they're more like, I was going to give them credit for being Romulans. Honest to God, some days I think they're just the people on that Nazi planet. You know what I mean? Like, this is what we all live on this planet as if the Nazis want war. This is how it is. And that was because production levels at that time and the expense that, what was available. Like, what do we got laying around? We got a lot of Nazi costumes. We got a lot of cowboy outfits, and we got a lot of togas. We can make a lot of togas. So how about a planet that's Greece all the time? A planet that's cowboys and Indians, but the Indians are all robots. Nah, it's too hard. It's cowboys against cowboys. We've got just cowboy outfits out the ass. We'll use those. And then we've got a lot of Nazi uniforms, a lot of leftover Nazi uniforms just hanging on. I mean, go over there to the Universal wardrobe department, and it's like it's like you stare down this long line of Nazi uniforms, like, this is terrible, but it's the only way they could hide the Ark, so they got tons of tribbles. But talk about an easy character to make, right? I mean, think about your budget limitations. And by the way, oops, sorry, hi, Jared. Think about the budgetary limitations you have on a show like that at that time. And they're like, we need a creature we can just overwhelm the place with. It can fill up the place. Like, they replicate, they fuck like rabbits is essentially the concept, right? There are 4 lights. That's right. And they're like, Jesus, how do we, where do we like? Because you're starting from scratch. Like we know the tribbles is basically, I don't know, Ewok nutsacks or whatever they like the final design. But sorry, but at that before tribbles, there was no such thing as a tribble, and nobody knew what it was going to be. And they're like, how the fuck do we make an episode where the place fills up with it? What are we going to make? How are we going to make a lot of these things? Now you could just make 30 or you could 3D print a bunch of character physical parts for it, and then Merkins. Yeah, it was all the leftover Merkins. They could take they could make we could make a few of them and then just CG the rest, right? Hi, Georgina. Good morning. Hello. I'm a little tired this morning, I have to admit. Cam and I were up playing Gang Beasts till very late. Till past both our bedtimes by a lot. And if you don't know, Gang Beasts sounds, if you're unfamiliar with the the world of little known games, I gotta say, it's from the name sounds like a very dark kind of a game, right? But in reality, it's goofy and annoying, and it's the characters can't stand up right, and you can grip things, but only by getting your hands to stick to stuff, and they'll stick to walls. And if you try to grab somebody, sometimes you'll grab them and the wall, and you can't release one without the other sometimes. And your guy kind of walks around, and basically the whole goal is to like headbutt or punch the person really lamely until they pass out, and then throw them over a cliff while they're asleep. I don't know how else to explain it. It's very much like Human Fall Flat. There's a bunch of games, and I'm sure anybody who plays in the kind of deep reads of the game world that are based entirely on somebody making their own game from home and going, I gotta tell, like, I could fix all the problems in this, but the problems are what make it entertaining. So let's see. Yeah. So I'll show you this is this is how, all right. Just so you know, this is what Gang Beasts is. This is oh, I didn't reset the title for the show. That's my bad. Hold on one second. Did it not say it on there? I thought I entered it. Did I? Oh, I know that's why. Sorry. My bad. I'll fix it. Think. Before I get into this. Okay. There we go. Now, update all. I updated it on Instagram, but not on here. Sorry. Okay. Thanks, CSL. Here we go. All right. This is that. By the way, that's the music that's playing all the time in the background, and so they make it look very exciting because like they're only showing you the moment of activity, but you just stick to things and try to crawl, and then you just fall off of things, and you can barely pick anything up, and you just run around, and your guy punches like this. You could sort of barely pick people up, and they stick to your hands. It's absolute idiocy, and your little jump is ridiculous. There you go. And then, like in these Waves games, you can make these costumes, which are amazing. Camden has a muscle guy with a fish tank for a head, and I tend to pick this guy that looks like my Nerd Halen character. It's very weird. And yeah, if you all die at once, it's a draw, and it's just ridiculous. So that's how I spent my night with my son last night. So forgive me if I'm a little wiped out. It's a new game. It's not new at all. It's so not new. Yeah. House Parks game stream when? I'm not against it. So I gotta tell you, I could probably set up something similar to what Destiny does by accident, because when I'm listening to like lectures on economics from, you know, Harvard or whatever, like if I'm trying to pick up something and look into this an economic theory or political theory or even ISW stuff, I will game while I listen to it because I distract the part of myself that wants to go do other stuff, and it works apparently. Is Cam with you or you're playing online? He's here. Yeah, we're playing next to each other. Yeah. I lose interest too quickly to play. I see. Yeah. Well, and I have to say, those kind of games. You guys familiar with Katamari Damacy? Maybe not. Hold on. Yeah, there it is. Katamari Damacy. For those like Katamari Damacy is an old game. And the premise of it is that you're this little thing that rolls around and you stick to things. And as you stick to things, you stick to more things. And then you keep rolling around until you pick up the world. It's super, it is. It's like one of those games where it's based on a mistake. Yeah. Let's see if I have like a Damacy reroll launch trailer. So I'll see if I can show you the premise. Like this is their relaunch trailer that they put up. It's all these odd like low res graphics, and it's very Japanese as a game. And like they're all dreaming of what game they're gonna get, and then they open the box and oh dear, it's Katamari Damacy reroll, and then this little thing rolls around and it picks everything up and crushes the car, and then it picks up all the people. Yeah. And it's really weird. It's such a weird game. But this little character rolls this thing around and it just picks up everything. See this? Yeah, so this is what the game does. And then the type of stuff you pick up makes it only roll in one direction. Like if it picks up a lamppost, it won't roll over it. You have to roll kind of sideways to get around the thing until you pick up. Yeah, this is my soft lead into Fried AI. Okay, how about that? So, one of the things about games that I think is a valuable conversation, and I'll see if I can find the video of it that really showed it, but very recently, the lovely folks over at OpenAI debuted their robot. They have a humanoid robot. See if I can find the pure video of it. Yeah, this. Yeah. So let me show you a little something. This is Figure is the name of the OpenAI robot, and I have to say, like, there are a lot of things that are fascinating about this. I'll tell you what. I'm gonna save the one detail about it. This is just from about 5 days ago they released this. This is a humanoid robot with speech-to-speech reasoning. I mean, you can talk to it. It reasons based on what you say and comes back to you. And then it connects to end-to-end neural networks, meaning the ChatGPT base, the large language models. Here, I'll show you. And again, this is... Well, here, watch. Hold on. That's its face, which I'm all for.
Hey, Figure One, what do you see right now?
I see a red apple on a plate in the center of the table, a drying rack with cups and a plate, and you standing nearby with your hand on the table.
Great.
Okay, that's the robot's voice. They have trained this particular language model for this robot to to say like and have normal human like vocal breaks.
Hey, can I have something to eat?
Sure thing.
Great. Can you explain why you did what you just did while you pick up this trash?
Okay, by the way, the boom, 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 boom music in the background is a terrible idea, because that's where, like, in a normal situation, the fucking camera would start closing in on the face of this thing, and there'd be like a Netflix trailer graphic that comes across, like, the most frightening robot movie since the Terminator 2 decided that he could sing. Whatever. Right. Just do, 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 do. Okay.
On it. So I gave you the apple
On it. He goes, on it.
because it's the only edible item I could provide you with from the table.
He picked up he knew the difference. He didn't throw the glass in the basket. He didn't throw the plate in the basket. He didn't pick shit up over here. Just the stuff that was dropped. I need you guys to realize, like, how fucking insane that is. The fact that he's like, on it. Yeah, so I gave you the apple because it's the only edible thing on the table. Like, wait. All this, I mean, you have 10 seconds to comply, right? I by the way, I'm totally for this. This doesn't scare me at all. I'm not getting, like, eek vibes at all. It's fine. Watch this.
Great. So, based on the scene right now, where do you think the dishes in front of you go next?
The dishes on the table, like that plate and cup, are likely to go into the drying rack next.
Great. Can you put them there?
Of course.
Of course. Now they cut, I think. No, he picks it up. This is the first real-time robot interaction video without edits that I have seen. Most of them, if you'll notice, there's a lot of cutting around because there's been this delay in the Wi-Fi or the connection or the computation of the large language models if they've been using them to talk or do stuff. There has been and it's not a lot, it's a couple of seconds, but enough to make the average Joe, like, kind of turn it off or not be impressed. This is all live. This is all, they change camera angles, but they don't change camera angles during the interactions, right? They let you watch real time. He says something, that's how long it takes to respond, and then this thing does the action and knows what it's doing. And the fact that it doesn't eat, so it knows that the next place, more than likely, those things are going, is in the rack.
All right, so how do you think you did?
I think I did pretty well. The apple found its new owner, the trash is gone, and the tableware is right where it belongs.
I agree. Thanks, Figure One.
You're welcome. If there's anything else you need help with, just let me know.
Okay. The sort of like personality aspect of Figure One, and the fact that when he interacts, he's got kind of a chatty conversational voice. Yeah, the voice is very nice. It's very sort of a relaxing, calming tone. Rob Lowe West Wing voice. It totally sounds like Rob Lowe West Wing voice. That is absolutely right. The robot is just called Figure One. It is OpenAI's new robot. Now, all of that is impressive on a scientific level. The amount of calculations, what it's actually responding to, the articulation of its joints. Never mind the fact that it can fucking pick up an apple, hand it to its other hand, drop it in your hand without denting the fucking thing. That's how soft and agile its grip is. It picks up the glass, doesn't go. I apparently have destroyed. Sorry, choke, choke, choke. Right? It doesn't get, they gave it vocal fry. They totally did. It's been talking a lot lately, I guess. Picks up the plate, puts it in there. Not damaging glassware is part of the demo, right, of what's going on here. Never mind the fact that this shit can work with, difficult items. These are the things they're going to send into mines and other places where they need to, either for rescues, if they can't do the action themselves, or to do the actual mining at some point. Does it get bloodlust? No, it does not. It doesn't care. It can't get bored. It can't run out of time. Don't project your emotions onto a robot. It won't work. Gotcha? It sounds like Jared Kushner. More like the other way around. Here's the most amazing thing about this. Okay, you ready? Are you ready? Because this is the most amazing thing about it. This thing is 13 months old. They started designing this robot just over a year ago. 13 months from nothing to that. 13 fucking months. Now, for a 13-month-old, he's doing great. He's actually probably closer to a month old because they didn't sort of plug him in, start him up until, fully functioning like this until about 6 to 8 weeks ago, right? It will never sleep. It will never stop. It's all it does. Right. So, 13 months from concept to this, which there are two things you need to take away from it. Wow, look how fast large language models and the computing available in those kind of things is. Look at the advances it's making possible. You know how, like, you kind of can't think back except in a sort of nostalgic way to dial phones. I grew up with a dial phone. I never had a beeper. I went, when I got a flip phone, actually I had a Nokia first. I remember wanting the Razor. Remember when the Razor came out? It was like, oh, that's fucking sweet. Looks and like William Shatner wanted to sue over the flip phone because of the tricorder, or because of the communicator on Star Trek, right? Most of us, like, if you went back and talked to us, if you're a sci-fi nerd like I am, I can imagine a future where there's like screens popping up as I'm walking around and all that kind of stuff, and all the things that we saw in Minority Report and all these other movies. I could see it, right? And I can imagine it happening, but it's still in the realm of this kind of fantastical imagining. And the cell phone, like we use it today, is in that fantastical imagining of the minds of people in the late 80s and early 90s, especially the ones who were holding up a giant fucking phone to your head that looked like a landline. And everybody was like, I think my first stand-up joke about like cell phones, when they had the big ones that you saw in the 80s movies that like rich douchebags had, right? That looked like the not the Intellivision controller. There was like it wasn't the 2XL. Yeah, maybe it was. You remember that like weird game Mastermind? Remember the game Mastermind? It was like red. Fuck, I'm gonna have to look that up now. There was a handheld game, and you could play like it had like a keypad on it and two speakers, and it looked like a big dumb phone. Anyways, point being is that most of those phones look like that. Like, use an example of something people have seen less of to describe something people have seen more of. Sorry. Anyways, the joke is that everybody's worried about getting, cancer from their cell phone, and I'm like, no, the tumor gets really big, and then you just push the phone into it, and it just holds it for you. Right? I think I was like 17 when that was one of my main, like, I had a nut on cell phones, right? If you'd explain the kind of ubiquity of these little small screen phones, these guys right here, right? And what they do and how comfortable we are with them and all the stuff we get to see and all that nonsense, right? Hey, look, it's Dave Hill. If you're not following Dave, I don't know what's wrong with you. On Instagram, he's lovely. And he's a crazy good musician and a very funny guy. And I think he was the last person to interview Dio before he passed away. But And he might be a robot. I don't know. He seems to be in multiple places at once. That's why I think there's variation. Anyways, Merlin, thank you. Freak Turd Zero, I love you. Yes, it was the Merlin. That's right. Mastermind was another game. Thank you so much. I love you for knowing the Merlin. So, if you would explain these things, like, or even, I gotta say, this is my iPad in my don't drop it case. Okay? And I, of course, have a NASA sticker on it, whatever. And when I travel and I do the show, I often need a second monitor for doing clips and all that kind of stuff when I'm doing it. And so since they started sidecarring these things, the iPad became incredibly crucial to me being able to stream while on the road, okay? If this whole thing, hold on, I'll show you this. Let's go back to here and close it. This screen, by the way, that is the Captain America against everyone endgame scene, right? Like the sort of how normal this has become is astounding. Yeah? How like average and regular that is, right, in our lives. It's fucking nuts. Even if you talk to somebody about, the cell phone, the screen's going to be the whole thing, and then you're going to be typing over it, and that's amazing, right? That, you could kind of get there, like when the BlackBerry came out, or even the little screen, like eventually the whole thing will be a screen, you'll just type straight on it. You could kind of get there, but not to the level, and if you did talk about it, it'd be like 20 years in the future. Yeah? Douglas Adams did predict it. I would argue the iPad as that form. I used to have the Don't Panic cover. My first iPad I ever had, I bought one. You could go on these sites and you could get a printed cover with something on it, and I got the cover of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, not the book, but what it was supposedly with this big "Don't Panic" on the front of it, because I thought that what better example is there of the device he talks about. I am a hoopy fruit, and I know where my towel is, I would like to say for the record. But that was one of the first covers I got for mine. Yeah. That said, like, think about your life pre-smartphone, and you're like, oh, God. And yes, there has been a downside in the social media aspects of this that will have to be remedied. However, its impact worldwide in connectivity, the ability for us to just be able to FaceTime family members, videoing family members from an articulate device that's not plugged into anything is fucking nuts. Like, you can't lose sight of the fact that if you have a smartphone of any sort, you can video call anybody. It's insane that it works as well as it does, and it's become so fucking normal. And that's the one thing that people don't recognize, is that before it was here, you couldn't imagine how normal it is in your life. Whether it's social media, all to the side, all the other shit it does that you use all the time that doesn't get as much attention because, there's not a lot of FaceTime murders. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of that kind of stuff. There's not a lot of controversy about all the other factors to it. So we don't think about them as much. We just use them. They integrated into our lives like that. That's what's coming with these guys. The amount of we are closer to the integration in regular order life of these things into our lives than we are to the beginning of the cell phone, which was, depending on if you look at 1973, certainly, but late 80s, early 90s, when they became, and they started to normalize as something you had. That was 30 years ago. This is 8 years max. 8 years away from you're going to go in someplace in the next 3 years, and there's going to be a robot running something, and it's going to be kind of cool, and it'll be something to look out for, like somebody showing off their razor. And then a year after that, they're going to be everywhere. And then the year after that, people are going to be discussing the next one. And Wayne Thompson says, the new slave. You cannot enslave a robot. and I would argue, Wayne, that's where the most of our movie about technology in terms of robots comes from, is our articulation of our own limited resources, our own limited lifespan, our own limited time, our own exhaustion, the cost of physical labor on the human body. We project that onto robots. And it would be stupid if you said an electric drill is going to get mad because you're not using your wrist to turn the screw. You know what I mean? Imagine it getting like the idea that an electric drill would get irritated. Or how about this? That a forklift is mad because those 3 other guys, who all 4 of them used to carry something heavy, now one of them is driving the forklift. That the forklift is mad that those 3 other guys are playing with their kids or some shit. It's silly. It's fucking silly. Now, the South Koreans are ahead of everybody else. They've created a robot bill of rights because they are concerned that the higher the intellect of a robot evolves, the more it might, if you mistreat it or you abuse it, it might come to its own conclusions about people and cause problems. So they've done this. Is it possible for a robot to gain sapience? No. It is possible for the computer program that it runs off of, possibly, or sentience, either one. It is possible that the computer program it runs off of could reach that. However, keep in mind, it does not know exhaustion. It can't. Be careful about trying to articulate even the limits that your pets have onto a robot. Yeah, your circuits are very tired. Well, that's exactly it. That we do have limited time. One of the things that a lot of these computers, if they came to a conclusion really fast, or like you always see like Lilu Dallas Multipass, where she's watching on screen a like the history of humankind, and she just decides we're awful, like an asshole would, and doesn't bother to look at, like, I don't know, warring anthills in the Amazon, and goes, anybody who looks at like nature and goes, that's the thing, like, humans are mean and terrible, and animals are so sweet, and they love, oh my God, that thing is shaking the baby, right? It is ridiculous. There is always competition in the animal world. The irony is that humans have the intellectual and technological capacity to extend harm past their current area, specifically, but that doesn't mean we have worse of a heart or worse of a an attitude towards our fellow beings than any predator or any prey animal that gets freaked out. And if you don't believe me, get between a moose and its kids, or a moose and its exit strategy for a particular area. Again, the only person ever killed at the Memphis Zoo was killed by a giraffe. I told you not to touch its ass, man. Don't pat it on the ass. Boom. It mule kicked him, or giraffe kicked his head off. So the idea that and you don't see any other animal in defense of my fellow humans. Yeah, off. Jazz berries. Yes, off. Ugh. Humans are the apex predator. No, we're not. No, an apex predator would be would wholly consume and never conserve. We do conserve, and you will never see any other animal, maybe the occasional dolphin nudging someone to the surface, walk over, pick up a sloth baby, and put it back with its mom. It's just, we're all right. We just got to get our shit together. That said, it's starting to sound like a car robot salesman. Nope, I'm just telling you what's coming. I'm just saying, this is closer in the future than smartphones are in the past. And this is going to be a regular part of life. And like manual labor, and therefore worldwide general population is going to nosedive. Because once you can set up a robot that's articulate as a human being that can actually do the work that you would need, you don't have to have kids just for the labor in the third world and in other places. And the cast-off robots from what would be the first world would be the higher, more modern, the modern world, as it were. The cast-offs, like when this thing becomes old and useless to us, what it will be capable of in like poverty zones in Africa, South America, island areas, what it will be capable of doing for them will be immense, will be a huge leap forward. So, there you go. Right. Also, I like its face. Like the kind of rope, like it while it's thinking, it does this kind of whatever. All right. How can the poor afford them? Because they can make themselves. That one of the biggest, there are two big costs. One is the materials and the construction, Vincent. So, once these things are up and running, you could get the materials that are used to make them produced by robots, and you could get the assembly done by automation, and you can have they can literally put themselves together. You can have the circuit boards will be done on a printer. It'll be a factory that will create robots. Essentially, that eliminate all technology is deflationary in its cost. By the way, we're getting close to the bottom of the hour, and I had so much more to talk about, but this is so fucking important. That what it'll do is eliminate the worst jobs humans have to do, and other people can spend their lives working on a job that's more fulfilling, and it gives them a sense of expression, creativity, and use for themselves. And the idea that it will get rid of all manual labor jobs is ridiculous. What it'll get rid of are the manual labor jobs that are repetitive, full of repetitive stress. But if you're the kind of person who would, fell trees and work at a lumber yard or whatever, you could spend your time making and crafting your own furniture and that kind of stuff and still work with your hands and enjoy that life, because the rest of the job will be somewhere else, and your cost of your food and the construction of your house and those kind of things will get so much lower. Dangerous and repetitive stress jobs is what these are going to be for primarily in the beginning. The other thing too is, for a while, especially around Japan and South Korea and other countries, they're going to be effectively like partners for people who are aging, and home nurses and support for people who are older, not quite living in a nursing home, but need somebody to look out for them, that can wash dishes, can make food, and that kind of stuff. Yeah. You can't wait for the robot uprising. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Gets definitely done. There's not going to be one. Humans will attack robots long before robots will attack humans. By the way, there need not be an uprising, because robots will obviously know where they integrate into warfighting when it does come up between humans. And I'll show you that in a second. First of all, let me show you this real quick. This is from MIT's site. And this is their current advances in AI. It's Friday AI, by the way. Morning show, the first hour. I'm going to be, on occasion and with some regularity, spending some time on this, because it's super fucking important. And it should give you a sense of hope and a recognition of where things are actually going, versus this whole idea that we're going to be dragged back. Even the Republicans can't drag us backwards. They're ice skating uphill. That's what the whole TikTok shit is about. They don't understand the technological evolutions that are around them. They're incapable of grasping the enormity of it. And so they are responding to it like a fucking monkey with a bone at the end of in the opening scene of 2001. So researchers enhance peripheral vision in AI models. So, which is good, because eventually robots can give us side eye, and I think we deserve it. This is probably, and Rob Glenn's in the chat, is he not? Because if Rob, feel free to check myself before I wreck myself on any of these things. And you and I need to have a sit down about this on camera at some point in the near future, because I have to say, I feel like the fact that Rob Glenn in our chat exists, it makes it easier for me to like read these kind of stories and go, at least I can explain where I'm coming from about it to someone who will totally understand what I'm saying. All right. This one of the biggest things from this is the ability to make all the mistakes before something goes to market. A good example is crash test dummies. The biggest leap forward in automobile safety was the design and the advancement of crash test dummies. That you could take these new cars and try them out in several shitty situations, and you could measure it based on the weight and the speed of the car, the grip of the tires. You could send them crashing into a head-on collision at a left and a right angle. You could have them hit from behind, right? And you could test over and over and over and over again before and go, okay, yeah, this car checks out. If it's in a series of the most common accidents and a couple that can happen randomly, this car will protect the inhabitants to this degree. Not everybody's going to be safe. There's too many moving parts. But within these measurements, we can guess how this car will react in this. Physics being physics, and that there are immutable laws of physics in terms of our own living environment, all simulation theory aside, you could run a version of that with all the details that you know, the weight of the car, the material density, where the batteries are, whether or not there anything that would ignite anything around them that could cause a fire, all that stuff. You could run that now in a computer simulation trillions of times. You just set it to do it and give us a rundown of best case scenario, worst case scenario, how we could fix these things, how we could solve for these issues way before you even build the fucking thing and give it to the Department of Transportation to run tests on it and give you a report back. Fuck, most big car companies have their own labs for doing this, and they can send their information in now, right? So this is a normal and huge leap forward as well, that you can just, all the different reasons why your software could crash over and over and over again, you can run it now in a way that you couldn't before. There just wasn't the bandwidth. The computer was barely capable of running your big fancy piece of software, much less running it crashing it into other software peripherals, all the drivers that are out there, the varying whatever version of Windows, whatever version of the Apple software you have, right? It can now do that and just constantly, tirelessly, literally tirelessly, which is a good thing. This one stood out to me as well. Startup accelerates progress towards light speed computing. Now, this is what makes people nervous, is the idea that robots and computers in the future could make snap decisions about us, because it's factoring too many things in and making a huge catastrophic judgment too quickly. Like the end of war games, when it runs the different scenarios after they believe they're coming in, and he's like, just let them land, because don't fire back, because it's fake. It's not really happening. It's an illusion, right? And then once that happens, it starts running every possible variation of the scenario super fast. Remember that part of it? I think that was, for a lot of us watching that movie, while the rest of it was very exciting and up to that moment is very tense, that part of it was like, holy fuck, that's how fast computer processing is. And that was fucking the 80s, right? It was very scary, but it was also like, it was running make a decision. What if this happened? What if this happened? What if this happened? Yeah, and then you get it stuck playing tic-tac-toe over and over again. Yeah. That's, I think, the part that scares everybody. Now, you do light speed computing in your head, even if it feels like you don't, every morning, every afternoon, and every night, and while you're sleeping. Your brain is constantly throwing movie spoiler. Thanks, Al. All right, John G. If you haven't seen War Games at this point, I can't help you. So, um, this Light Matter, which is 3 MIT alumni, they're using photonic technologies to reinvent how chips communicate and calculate, which means light without heat, and the speed of it will be enormous, which again, it's all technology is deflationary, using less energy to do more, using less materials to do more. It's like the future is going to be fucking wild. All right. I don't know what this lady's on about. This part, I think, is the other thing I wanted to show you. Brain surgery training from an avatar. MIT Nano Immersion Lab works with AR/VR startup to create transcontinental medical instruction. Literally, people putting on a VR headset. They've got these little articulate clips and that kind of stuff that they can use, and they can control different devices. Like you, instead of having just your 2 hands and just the 2 things that you can hold, and a nurse or a medical assistant that can put a clamp on something, you can actually use a multi-armed device to put the clamp in, and then you just don't use that piece again, and then you use this other thing, and you can manipulate these other pieces to laser the tumor or cut the piece out or zap the pineal or whatever you're doing, with this multi-armed device that you could pack up into a box, drop into an area where there's been a natural disaster, and if somebody's got retractor as well. If somebody's got a situation where they have to do the kind of surgery you could only do in the past at a huge, lab at Yale or at MIT, like, you could now carry a device, bring a device with like 5 articulate, 6 articulate arms that as a surgeon, you could put these glasses on and effectively do surgery on someone, save their life, save their ability to walk, save their fucking brain, because you might not have a nurse and you might have somebody trained on all this, but you know the gig and you have this device that will help do that. Like that's your movement. Even part of it could be based on AI, that if its job is to sponge blood out of the area to keep it clear, it can know to do that, and you can speak to it like a real human. Yeah, you don't even have to be in the same room. That's right, Paul Young. This, I gotta say, that's one of the most beautiful things about this. Yeah. What's the singularity? Singularity is when humans and technology merge and never uncouple. We get to a point where we either have a chip in our brain that we just interact with everything we're doing, or that robots are articulate enough to be at full understanding with a human being, which they're not. I mean, AGI is a long way off. I don't care what anybody says. Like, it'll have its own general intelligence, but what the fuck does that mean? And it's incapable of emotional intelligence, period. It can fake it. Faking it is not that hard, no matter what Donald Trump says. But absolutely, you can have robots that is, for all practical considerations, interacts with you like another person. But never forget, it ain't. It isn't another person. This is my whole point. Robots don't dance. Robots can recreate movements from music they heard, or in time with a tempo, or however they've been trained to do it, or repeat a dance move. That's not dancing. Does that make sense? Okay. So I would argue that even some trained dancers, while they're performing, aren't dancing. Some dancers never stop dancing. Some are just repeating the motions, and it's not really dancing. Does that make sense? Okay. Robots don't dance. Robots can't dance. Never will. Okay. Now I've got to open up my other, get our guests in here, and they'll be, okay, they have the links. Excellent. Ah, nice. Hold on one second. Let me open up this guy. Where are you? Yeah, there we go. Whee! Put this over here so I can have our guests come in, and I'll bring them in just 1 second. They should be loitering in the background. But you guys know I love this stuff. But I love this stuff because anybody I love this stuff the way I love the fucking power tool aisle at Home Depot. I love this stuff the way I love the the computer aisle and the peripheral aisle at Office Depot, because I don't think people recognize how out of reach things were for the average person just, 30, 40 years ago. The idea of like somebody having a power drill, like a screw gun, to do shit was like, I mean, only the most expensive contractors could afford to pay for these things for their guys, and they were wired and all kinds of shit like that. And now, nobody even thinks twice about like, I need a screw gun, and they can go get, I use the Ryobi system, but they're all equally good, right? Hold on one second. Let me make sure we're good in there. Enable this. And turn on my virtual camera, and hopefully they'll be with us in just a couple minutes. CNC surgery, right. I have a snap maker, which I use, and Cam and I mess around with a lot. And the last thing I printed, I made multiples of them. Hold on. Let me talk amongst yourselves, chat room. I know I have guests coming in. I shouldn't leave the room, but I'm going to see if I can find this real quick. Okay. So this is like a little high-tech samurai mask thing, whatever. And you can see from you can still see, because it's 3D printed, you can still see the striations on the plastic. It's not perfect yet. It's not super smooth. And there's ways to cure it and make it smooth, right? But Cam wanted one of these. So I ordered I downloaded the files, and there was one person who was printing them on Etsy. So I got one of them, and then I basically shrank the files down so that it would fit on his face. Yeah. And so we printed one just like this that's white, and it's out in the garage, or it might be up in his room. But basically, you just can print all the little pieces, and then you just attach them or whatever. It's just, using it for like cosplay and other shit like that. Many people know that like during Lab Rats, in the spider episode that I directed, I printed out from the 3D files the spider that we used. I also made several guns for the show that I designed in a 3D program and printed the original version of them. And so I got the Snapmaker because it does, it's got a laser cutter and a CNC on it and a 3D printer. And now they have a dual nozzle, so it does it can print with 2 different colors plastic at the same time. I'm looking for Karen and Anita. Let me make sure. Let's see. Copy link. Make sure they have the current link. I'm sending it to you. I don't see them in there, but they might be just. There you go. I'm watching for them. And I'll hear them in the background if they come in, so I'll turn the mic on. So, yeah. So Karen and Anita from True Blue Politics are going to come on. Do I have a 3D printer? Yes. I have one I made myself. My first one I ever made myself. And then I have a couple that I have purchased. The one that I can't seem to get to work right because the software for it is only PC, is my Delta printer. And I like the way it looks. So it's kind of, I'll show you. This is a Delta printer, meaning that it prints onto a round base, and then it has this little arm that's articulate. It's not better than the flatbed ones. It can build taller stuff because of the shape of it. But this little arm, this thing moves around. See that? And it prints like that by drawing on stuff. It's not expensive I mean, some of these things can be like $1,000. This is a couple hundred, and I've had it for a while. And it's just, yeah, it's cool. But it like I wish it had Mac software, because I have to use the only PC I have is the one I do the show on, and we had some issues a while back, and so I had to erase every piece of software on this thing that I don't use for stuff. And anyways, I need to do a big troubleshoot day on that at some point. And I like the look of it. I just like the fact that this arm does this shit and draws it out. It looks so futuristic, right? Are they in the background? Yep, they both have it. Excellent. Okay, I'm waiting to see them, so they'll be. Oh, there we go. Yep, they both have it. Excellent. Who's in there first? Sorry.
Hey. Hi. Oh, hold on. I got my little. Can you see me?
I can see you. Yep. Hold on 1 second. Who's that? Hold on. I've only listened to you guys with audio, so I don't get to see you on Steph's show. So, am I talking to Karen or Anita right now?
I'm Karen.
There she is.
Anita's trying to get in. Hopefully.
Okay.
Hopefully she's getting in. Yeah, she's visually impaired, Hal, so she's trying to get in with the password.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I will bring you on. I'm going to bring you on in just 1 second. And
Okay.
people can hear you in the background, so just be aware. It's okay. Nothing wrong with it. But and I'm going to put you guys in the same screen together, because I think that'll be the easiest
Okay.
for everybody. But let's see. I'm going to just do, guest one. This will work. Pardon me while I
guess
fix
I'm
this.
loud.
Oh, no, you're just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, guest one. Okay, there we go. And I have to add these things up. I'm very excited to talk to you about a bunch of things. I don't know if you caught any of what I was just talking about. But I have said that the Biden administration, whether it's this time or within the next, couple of years, like right after in January of next year, is going to be the first White House to have a AI czar. Right now they won't call it that. They'll have an office of whatever, technological officer or whatever. But it's going to be a thing. It's going to be a crucial aspect of our lives.
Yes.
And I just don't know how much people recognize what that's the enormity of it. Now I'm going to bring you in real quick. Whoop, there you are, so that I don't crash my system. There she is. And turn off studio mode, because it acts very weird. Talk about something that's making up for it. But and I may have, because of Johnny, I may have a green screen thing on you that's making things pop. But welcome, by the way. This is Karen, everybody, from True Blue Politics, the podcast. And Anita will be joining us in just a second. I'll bring her in as soon as we can.
Okay, so let me check. She's sending me a text message. Of course, it's on my phone.
Okay, yes,
and
and
it's not. She says she's having trouble.
Okay.
Getting in.
Okie doke.
So yeah, I don't know. Would it make sense for me to dial in on my PC and then patch her in somehow, or?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you can get her, if you
All right.
vocally, if she doesn't, mind you being on screen and her not, we can.
Yeah, she doesn't need to be on screen at all. So
Okay.
all right. Let me then I guess I will disconnect here and I'll rejoin in a few. Okay.
Great idea. Okay, cool.
All right.
I'll
Thanks.
continue my rant elsewhere. Okay.
Okay.
Excellent. And I'll hang up on her so that goes away. There you go. So they'll dial back in together, which is great. Okay. Again, we're talking about technology, and we're this is still how we're humping by. But I would like to also remind everybody that, and it shouldn't be lost on anybody when we have like Phil on the show, that I've had Phil since the beginning of the Ukraine war on my show, and we've had obviously some tech issues over the time, but the fact that I, as a budding live streamer, has the ability to have my own correspondent, as it were, in Ukraine, when, I mean, that was frankly an impossibility, you know, maybe a little over a decade ago. You know, and look at how like normal we are with it, how we're like, this should work. No, it shouldn't. It's terrible that that we just kind of blow it off. Okay, this I thought was funny, and as I'm waiting for them to rejoin, is AI ruining Etsy? Loosening definition of handmade frustrates artists and buyers. This is because people are basically, maybe later. People are basically, they're using AI to create you know, t-shirt prints, essentially, more than almost anything. Will make a, you know, a photo or something they put on, and they're just doing AI art and selling it. It's still not going to knock out. As a matter of fact, I think it will clarify a lot of what's available on Etsy as being more of the handmade stuff. That's what you're really looking for. It's what you're really looking for in the beginning. Then it became like a drop shipping site in a lot of ways. Oh, thanks for the gifted memberships. Who did that? I just saw those happen. Yeah, drop shipping, yeah, is the thing that ruined Etsy more than anything else. In many ways, I think this will just make it a reset. People will be more aware of what they, you know, that they're getting AI crap on there essentially, and that people are just like reselling AI stuff that they're not participating in making other than asking for it, right? So, and then is this the, oh yeah. So this is the other part I wanted to show you guys. So, and before everybody gets all like anti-Israeli about this thing, the Israel Ministry of Defense and Elbit medium robotic combat vehicle. This is their Israeli MOD. This is called Robust. I'm going to show you the ad for their robotic infantry vehicle. Check this out. And this is all the companies involved in it. That's my house. Smart target plan. Check out that drone. Jesus Christ. I would argue the fucking truck with a gun on it, whatever. The fact that it's autonomous and rolls around and can tell the threat between somebody with a gun and without a gun, and it has like, it's one of the things. It's ironic that people will go, "This is horrifying and terrible, terrible," and yet those very same people will go, "Look at the kind of honor that the Predator had. If you didn't have a gun in your hand, it wouldn't hurt you because that's okay." That's the sort of moving morality of the whole thing. Yeah, the Ed 209, right? You have 15 seconds to comply, right? It can tell, like, and again, that's 80s tech where it couldn't tell if you were holding something or not, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, the most fucked up thing about this whole thing, I got to tell you, it's EV. It's electric. Is that drone. That drone looks like something from Hoth, for fuck's sake. Right? Look at that again. Look at that thing. The fuck? We're all using little quadcopters and all this shit. That, good Lord. Oh, she's back. Yay. Karen's back.
Okay. Oh, I have Andrea calling me too. I have Anita on the phone. I don't know if you can hear. Anita, say something.
Andrea, she's good. I hear her. Yeah, it's quiet, but I can hear her.
You can hear her?
Hi.
Okay. Oh my
I
gosh.
love you, Hal.
Love you too.
Yeah, I listened to you all about like the Hunter Biden stuff, and you were telling us way before the media caught on how much bullcrap that was.
Right.
So thank you.
My pleasure. I gotta say, hold on one second. I gotta bring you guys in visually. There we go. And I appreciate that because it was so, as I've watched that play out, especially lately with the Smirnoff stuff. Because my joke, my running gag at the time when this all started to come down was this idea that it was probably Rudy Giuliani. Was that most likely the FBI informant they were talking. And by the way, I want to reintroduce. We could see Karen. Anita is in the background. We'll try and make sure her audio. Yes, and
She's
True Blue
never
Politics.
in the background. She's never in the background. Hal.
Sure. Yes.
That's right.
She's right. You have to understand. I consider lurking a talent. So yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're look for them on True Blue Politics. They have a YouTube channel where they release the podcast that you guys do, right? And then of course it's on all your regular services.
We actually, so we have it on all our social media. So Andrea, I sent her all the links, but we actually are not on YouTube yet. But anywhere you get your podcast.
I found you on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
You have
so
3 subscribers. Yes.
On YouTube.
Oh, then we are on YouTube. I'm sorry, my executive producer's son. I'm going to have a word with him.
Right. See, I'm on top of this. I told you, lurking is a talent. I know what I'm doing.
All right, we need more presence then on YouTube, apparently.
Yes. So everybody can. We'll post the link to your to you guys on there. They have currently 3 subscribers. Now they have 4. Look at that. We've already had an impact. 10 videos. You got this political podcast. Yes, hosted by Karen from Chicago and Anita from San Antonio. Which
maybe you get 10 today. 10 subscribers.
10
we're gonna. Yes, my goal is to get you to more subscribers than you have videos. That's I think that's.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
That'd be less humiliating. Yeah.
I can do it. I'm pretty sure I can do it. If I manage to get my channel to 66.6, which was a dream. 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah, I remember when you first started out talking about that. Yeah, that was the dream.
That was the dream, and you did it.
There you go.
Congratulations.
So you guys have been, how long have you been doing the podcast together?
So
since November.
Yeah.
November. Yeah. We started we wanted to kind of, to coincide with the election.
Right.
Coming up. So it was like perfect timing for us. Right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously you guys know I and Boston Brian, Texas Paul, and all these folks, we're all for like an absolute blue wave, and not just because I know Biden's going to win this year, but we've got to send a message to the Republican Party or what's left of them to not believe their own hype and think that they can send Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene types to all these offices and get elected. Because if we don't show up, that's what they're going to think.
Yeah.
They're going to think
there has to be a political cause for this. There has to be a political cause for this, MAGA.
Yeah, agreed. So I guess so anyways, a fledgling show meant to make an impact. Very exciting. What was the impetus for you guys to go, we finally got to pull the trigger?
Well, like being a year out from the election, so Anita and I first met through Stephanie through her show. I was a big fan of Anita, and for some really pathetic reason, Anita was a fan of me, and I don't know, because she's like way smarter than me. But but what I will say is that, so we started talking, and we really became each other's support people through the Trump regime. And so a lot of bottles of wine later and a lot of multiple phone calls a day.
Oh, you definitely are team Steph.
Oh yeah,
Right.
totally. So and not the box variety.
Right.
So anyway, but no, so we ended up, we would have these conversations and I'm like, this would kind of make for a good podcast, just kind of, two friends talking and about the issues and, also bringing it back to, the whole idea of like mainstream media isn't going to do this for us, right? People like you are going to do it for us. People like
and
Stephanie.
The mainstream media was very frustrating listening to the mainstream media.
Yeah.
I would like to.
Is not a friend.
Well, here's the thing. I think they can be frenemies at times. We've always known because of Chuck Todd and others like him that they're they've got to play. The news has to play both sides of the fence. Because that's part of the gig. I have no problem with genuinely fair and balanced news. But but when it comes to the Chuck Todds of the world, this kind of idea that there's some sort of balance between even just the classified documents case between what Biden did and went, oh, we discovered some stuff that was in our things and we turned them over immediately, and we told the FBI, come over and search. We're not going to get in the way. We'll let you do your thing. Versus Trump literally shuffling boxes back and forth, lying to his own lawyer, making them incriminate themselves. And then an ongoing conspiracy that he's been trying. Like the difference between the two of those things and the kind of way that they I guess they breeze past that. The assumption is like, well, okay, yeah, sure, but no, not yeah, sure, but one's a crime, one's an accident. And if you can't tell the difference, what is your morality about?
Right.
Well, then they jumped on this whole, her report that talked about Biden being so basically senile, and the media just fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, just like they fell for the Barr and the report and the Durham report, and they just do this over and over again, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to MSNBC, and they were doing the both siderism stuff with Ken Delaney, and now CBS, CNN, Politico, even they were all reporting it like this was all a bunch of bull. He just lied in this report. So MSNBC sometimes bends over backwards, it seems, to try to seem like they're just, not the liberal channel.
Yeah. Well, do you think that's because they kind of take the bait from the right? Because there's been this setup for a very long time that and the sales pitch from the right is that it's totally unfair. Liberals own the media. We're all, they're against us. They're anti-American, blah, blah, blah. And so it kind of baits you into at least having to give, it's how oftentimes on our side, in an effort to recognize what should be self-evident about our belief in diversity and inclusion of other people and listening to other voices, that we have to, if we ever have to articulate a point that might be, not in line with some particular talking point, you have to lead in with this whole, look, we don't, obviously I believe in this, and obviously we all believe in this, and you have to give that precursor before you start into it. It's because you don't want to be in that fight about it. You want to get straight to the point. And I think the press, especially over the last, maybe the biggest rope-a-dope the Republicans have been able to do, the biggest capability is saying, we don't have any power in media, you have all the power, and then and that power dynamic, which on the left is meaningful, on the right is not, the conversation about who has power and who uses it, that they have to excuse themselves or tap dance around it, right?
Right.
It's a trick.
That's a great point about the qualifiers, though. The left, we always do this.
Yes.
We cannot just straight up say Biden's doing a great job. There always has to be a qualifier. Well, there's still some people hurting.
Yeah, well, look at the economy, the coverage of the economy, and I feel like for all of us who marinate in this stuff, you start to feel like you're taking crazy pills, and you're the ones that are out, talking to your friends and relatives who just consume, regular, local media or just turn on their radio, and you're out there with your hair on fire. And they're looking at you like you're crazy. What the hell are you talking about? You need
to stop watching the news.
Exactly. You need to back off, man. You're just way too invested in this stuff.
By the way, you guys are at 118 subscribers right now on your YouTube channel.
Okay.
Thank you, Hal.
Thank you.
No pressure.
That is really something.
a 10x, more than 10x bump,
right.
just from being on here.
That is probably a record, isn't it?
It is.
It is, and it's kind of I got to be honest. It's in the realm of Schaumburg, as was at one point the fastest growing city in America because there were 4 people living there and 4 people moved in, so it was 100% growth. But that's it.
Oh, sure. Thanks a lot, Hal.
Absolutely, 120. We're at 120 now. We'll keep pushing this up as we go. 129. Look at that. Every time I refresh, it jumps up. Thank you guys in the chat for subscribing to them. Yeah.
Anita, you have no idea. We are the Schaumburg of podcasts now.
And you're from Chicago. You know exactly what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
I know. What is Schaumburg?
Schaumburg is like this mall, this town way outside of Chicago, but it's got a kick-ass mall. Okay.
It does. And at one point, nobody lived there. There were basically no homes there.
Yeah.
It was mostly an industrialized area, and they built this mall, and then they built this, I guess, a subdivision. And so there had been like 9 houses in Schaumburg, and the rest was just like giant warehouses. And suddenly there were 26 houses, and they're like, "Oh my God, the growth! Right? We're gonna need a school before too long." Like simmer down. But it literally.
Yeah. Calm down. You're not Naperville, Schaumburg. Okay.
Right. And of course it goes to that whole like concept of per capita.
And when you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what?
That.
Oh, he never knows what he's talking about, does he? Oh my God, it just drives me crazy.
Lately, I gotta say,
not lately. No, he never knows what he's talking about, and he always BS's his way through everything. It's like when he talked about cutting, entitlements, he didn't know what he was talking about. He just was, it was a word salad. And, he is just, that's what scares me the most is how dumb he is.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just an empty vessel. Yeah. And he can be manipulated so easy. I mean, Steve Mnuchin tells that story about how he came in and wanted cuts in Medicare and Social Security. And he's like, Trump was like, "No, I've been promising them I wouldn't do that." So he actually said, "Well, what about disability?" And Trump said, "Oh, well, that will be okay." Of course, that was cuts in Social Security, and every budget for every year that he was there, he had cuts in Social Security and Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And he doesn't even probably know it.
Well, here's the thing: he was always meant to be kind of a rubber stamp automaton for like the worst impulses of the Republican Party, and so the only reason he would be for a 16-week abortion window or not doing cuts right now is because it's an election talking point. But he literally, by putting Pence as his second guy, was running on this idea that, like, I'm lying for Jesus. It's okay. I'm telling everybody what they even said recently, you got to get elected. You got to win elections. And he means you got to win elections so you can get in there and do whatever the fuck you want. And that's...
We got this big dummy that'll do anything. I mean, seriously, all you have to do is talk nice to him.
Right.
Or, it's just all about his ego anyway, right? So if you just have to, I mean, Saudi Arabia found that out. Russia found that out.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really scary that people don't understand how dangerous he really is because they think that they think we're being hyperbolic when we talk about him being a dictator. But the fear is the way he's going to be so easily manipulated, and all he wants is the power, right?
Yeah.
That's all. Right.
Yeah, and the irony is that sometimes I'm like I agree that he wants the power. I think sometimes though he wants the label more than the actual power, because the actual power, it's a little bit like George W. Bush and Cheney. Like Dick Cheney definitely wanted the power. George W. Bush wanted the label of president. And this has been a methodology the Republicans have done, I would argue, since Reagan, because you're going to run the actor from California, and believe me, I don't think of that as a pejorative, as your presidential candidate, but your VP is going to be the former head of the CIA during the Vietnam.
Right. Yeah, that's what they do. They elect these idiots,
right?
Because they're easy to manipulate.
Well, and it kind
they
of
don't know anything.
So one thing, Hal, that we've been trying to lean into, obviously, because we feel like every single issue kind of pertains to this Project 2025, which
Right.
was, put out like in the late 70s. So right around like the Reagan era, right? To basically enable the next Republican president. And now they have the perfect guy, right?
They have the perfect vessel for it.
Yeah. Yep. So, like, to your point, where is the power? The power is this group of hundreds of different,
They've been telling us about a cabal that runs the world and that puppets whoever's in office for since then, that time, since 1975. You could argue that was the launch point for this story that the Illuminati secret group, whatever, the zeitgeist BS about the Democrats colluding with commies and blah, 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 when in reality, they actually set up a program wherein they would have a group of people that would puppet the Republican Party. It's been the exact opposite. They hid what they were doing by accusing the other side. Yeah. It's very common.
Right. They're always projection always projection or confession.
Yeah.
So,
and it's been, and here's the thing. I think Trump wants the label. He likes things that are painted gold more than the gold itself. If he can convince, you know how
I've often circumstance. He wants the pomp and circumstance.
Right. But he even
to hear the hail to the chief when he walks into a room.
Right. And I think he I think, honest to God, like in court, for example, he used to have this position in New York when he would go to court that if you win in court because you're right, so what? Anybody can win in court when they're innocent or they haven't done something, which is not always the case, obviously. But he believed that, like, if you just win in court because you didn't do it or because you got, of course you get away with it. That's how it works. But if you can game it, if you can trick them, that means you're smart. If you can get your Roy Cohn to get you out of it and you committed the crime and you got away with it, that means you're a badass. That means you own the system. There's more ego in being wrong and winning than winning for the right reasons. And I think in many ways it's the gold veneer attitude. If I can convince these dumbasses that I'm actually a billionaire, it's kind of better than being a real billionaire because that takes work. I'd have to do real investments and shit. Right. But I sold this book to these fucking morons. Yeah. And they fell for it.
They're still giving me money.
You know what? As you're talking, it reminds me of, like, so if anybody has any, relatives who are addicted to gambling, right? And, there's people like, well, there's no physical addiction, right? Well, like, what's the addiction? Like, what's the payoff, right? If you're like a gambler or whatever, that's the payoff. It's the adrenaline rush. It's seeing what you can get away with.
Yeah.
Like when you're hiding it, from your loved ones.
You think it's part and parcel to his, like, sexual assault stuff too, because having something you can have, what's the point of that? What's the worth in having something you've earned or you deserve? The thing is getting something you can have. It's out of your reach and stuff.
Exactly.
And
He's never wanted to do the work. He's never wanted to do the work to get ahead.
No.
Right. Well, because he views it, and I would say there's a certain intrinsic laziness to, like, part of every human being, where if we, if I can do the lowest effort for the highest return, that's fine. But I think he takes pride in making other people work for him for free. That's why he didn't pay contractors. It's why being the head of the federal government, something he has decried forever and tossed off as some sort of bullshit job, and the government can't do anything right. But the idea of doing it, where everybody does all this shit for you, just tell them and they gotta do it. This is fucking great. And then he realized the hard way that's not at all how it works, and you can't just order the Secret Service to take you to the fucking Capitol, because there's a lot of work that goes into it, and he didn't care to learn or no.
Right. But of course, now he's going to have people that are going to actually change the laws and change the rules, like he's doing with Kemp. What did Kemp just came out with something, right? Where now this judge has rendered this decision on the Fannie Willis case, but Kemp simultaneously is trying to put in legislation where they could basically pull.
Well, they already passed that legislation, but he said he wouldn't go along with that.
Well, now I think he's changed that.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I just heard something about how that's what he's wanting to do now.
Well, the irony is that Kemp wants this shit, but Kemp wants this shit because Kemp was eyeing the presidency for a while.
Yep.
And before Trump decided he was an enemy, this was one of the rungs in Kemp's ladder. Is he's setting up this system so that he can get elected, guarantee stays governor, and then set himself up in the future where he'll have sort of outsized control over this. But now, the monster he created, it fucking ate the ladder because he can't. Kemp's not going to be fucking president. He's not going to be the Republican president. They're never going to have him. They won't. Like just like Trump has alienated, 30% of his base, and he's screwed because of it. Kemp is, like there's basically a half a dozen Republicans that could get elected in any normal universe as sort of across the aisle conservatives. Kemp could have been one of those people. Never gonna fucking happen.
Right.
Basic.
What makes me angry is these judges who keep trying to placate the right wing. I mean, this judge, what was his name in this Fonnie Willis thing in the Georgia case?
Oh,
right.
McAfee, whatever. Is it?
He's like, oh yeah, this isn't a conflict of interest, but it just looked bad. So he's trying to placate them, and he went out, and what ends up happening is these guys, the right wing, just jumps on that. The same thing with Bob Hur. He did the same exact thing. John Durham. They always do this. They try to placate the right because the right is fucking crazy.
What's the combing of? It's the combing of federal agencies. It's the idea that Comey had to come out because of political pressure, and he absolutely didn't. But he came out and said there might be something to this Hillary Clinton thing, and we got to look a little further. Never fucking turned out to be the case.
He was trying to placate them. He was,
right. And that ended up being, you mix that what he said with what the Barr's bullshit rearticulation of the Mueller report, and it creates this just phony enough to get by. It's basically a nonstop October surprise. That's what it is. It's like an ever-rolling October surprise. Say again, sorry?
Before we released that report, the media just fell hook, line, and sinker for it. They were just scrambling. Remember that press conference where they were all screaming at Joe Biden like that?
Yeah.
And I mean, where are they now? They're all tight. They're never going to apologize. They're not going to ever say they were wrong. You just got to forget about it. Just forget about it. That never happened.
Right.
Well, it plays in then to that distrust of the media, right? I mean, it's just then all of a sudden you have everybody screaming about the media and how they're always getting it wrong. Why don't you guys just do your jobs and report the facts? And by the way, MSNBC, if you're gonna cover Trump, at least have the facts running. They can't figure out how to scroll the facts. I mean, I don't get that. After 8 years, you guys can't figure this out.
Yeah.
Facts come real time.
Rachel Maddow doesn't think they should even show him, but I think it's important to show his craziness. I don't think we benefit from not showing him.
Well, a lot of times that we have what I would call the illusion of normalcy, which is if you show one part of something and you go, this was crazy, that the rest of it was fine. It was just this part that was nuts. And with Trump, for a long time, they would show one thing that he said, but it was the politically extreme and dangerous part of it. So they would go, "Oh my God, it would appeal to the right wingers." They would watch him say it in like this, he's going to use nukes, or he's going to, he's got a bigger button, or all those kind of things. And the assumption was like he had a normal rally where he's just talking about regular conservative shit, and then at one point he said this thing that goes past the line, and how dare he, and controversy about that. When in reality, the rest of it was fucking gibberish. Yeah, it was inarticulate nonsense on top of being wrong or violent or morally, grotesque.
What did he say that just recently about Hillary Clinton's email, the acid wash?
Oh, yeah.
Right. He used acid testing.
Yes.
It was. Yeah.
Can you imagine if Joe Biden had said that?
Oh my God.
Right. I dealt with that, kind of yesterday. We looked at some of the stuff that Trump said in his Greg Kelly interview, which you could just see Greg Kelly's daddy issues on full display, and his kind of emotional dick turtling at everything that Trump said. Yeah. Good Lord.
Are you lonely?
Yeah.
What was that, Nita?
Are you lonely? Is it lonely at the top?
Oh,
Is it hard to be so great?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you're
that's what it was like,
protected
okay.
by God? Do you think God, like, do you thank
Oh,
God
yeah.
essentially is what he's saying for,
Yeah.
you know, he's trying to help.
For
Here's the other
creating
thing too.
you. Yeah.
They know he's a mess. There was a point where they could cover it.
Mhm.
There was a point where they could just kind of sidestep shit. And they could
Mm-hmm.
go, oh, they could do, thanks to the media only showing that one piece or that one part that was just over the line politics as opposed to just batshit crazy, stupid, wrong, or broken, or
Yeah.
just honestly weird. The
Right.
part, which
Yeah.
should be the
It's
loop,
weird.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know what with the music playing in the background.
So
Yeah.
weird. So,
Yeah.
hugging the flag
Oh, yeah.
is so weird.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know what? And the right wingers love that. That shows their patriotism. Their patriotism is so performative,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Performative
It has
patriotism. Yep.
The easy stuff, right?
Yep.
Well, yeah. I mean, they get to co-opt the symbols and not live up to the standard.
Mhm.
Exactly.
You want to see how you want to where that was cut from? Look at the Hindu slash Buddhist slash Tibetan symbol that the Nazis turned into the Hooks cross, right? The Hooks cross.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, the swastika, which is a Hindu word,
Yeah.
that they just took and said, "That's ours now. We're going to use that
Yeah.
symbol because it's very impactful and it's very cool
Yeah.
looking and scary. We'll just steal your shit."
Right.
Obviously, they weren't going, "We're a Buddhist party, for fuck's sake," right?
Right.
We'll just use the symbol because we can use it for impact, and we can bullshit everybody about our meaning, you know, using that particular thing. The same thing is true of them. Like that's why I always reclaim the flag. That's why I was like, they have America first, I have America rocks. That now that's where that's where I'm going. And that's why I'm like all in on the flag and all that stuff because I'm not going to let them take it. I'm not going to let them take the OK symbol and turn it into a white supremacist symbol and just let it slide because, okay, if you do that now, you're a white supremacist. Like, fuck you. No, I'm not. Eddie Murphy doing this in Beverly Hills Cop is one of the greatest movie moments. I'm not going to let them turn it into Eddie Murphy was a white supremacist in the 80s. Get the fuck out of here.
Right. Right.
That whole State of the Union, I mean, I felt was very patriotic.
Oh my
I
God.
Yes.
was like in tears by the end of it. It was so
Yeah.
patriotic. It made me feel really good about America.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Well, and two, you know, and somebody, I don't know if you're familiar with Richard Chu. He's on in the mornings on WCPT, and he has the family meeting. So anyway, so he was actually talking. Somebody called in, and he said, you know, very respectfully, you know, like when we speak about, you know, these people as Christians, you know, all these evangelical Christians that are following Trump, and you know, they're all in. Can we just take back the word Christian, even like whatever your beliefs are? Because for him, he's like, I am a Christian. I follow the teachings of Christ, right? I'm not a Republican Christian. So can we take that back too? And so when we refer to them, refer to it as they're faux Christians, right? Always use.
Well, here's a I would argue to you in deference to modern language about a lot of this stuff that they are colonizing Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
That these assholes are colonizing patriotism.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. They don't love the territory, want to live in the territory, take care of the territory. They're just standing on it and killing anybody else who doesn't agree that that's their, you know, that they own the space. That's how I would describe it. They have colonized all these things without ever desiring to live up to the standards.
They don't know they don't even understand what Christianity really is. I mean, they never talk about the actual teachings of Jesus.
Right.
Of course not. Well, that's why they say Judeo-Christian a lot, by the way, because it allows them to be like supporters of Israel, but only to the point where at some point Jesus is going to come back and kill all the Jews and start his magic kingdom from there and all that bullshit. Which it is, because Revelations was never supposed to be, and the Gospels certainly wasn't supposed to be at the end. It was one of the ones they were going to throw out, like a bunch of the other repetitive nonsense things that were written down way later. But Congress of Nicaea being what it is, they're like, we need an ending. Right? It's something exciting. We got to end the book on a big note.
We need
sell
explosions. Make it
yeah,
big.
it's got to be a big. Yeah, it was the Marvel Cinema Universe version of biblical rewriting.
Exactly.
But yeah, but they, the reason they say this is because they want to vacillate between an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and love thy neighbor around Christmas, right?
Yeah.
So they can pretend to believe either sides. And a Stu in the chat saying, "Wasn't Jesus a Jew?" Well, that's the big debate. He was either the first Christian or the last Jew or both. So that's always
remember when they used to say,
doesn't matter.
What would Jesus do?
What would
remember
Jesus do? Yeah.
What would Jesus do? They'd have those little,
Well, I guarantee he wouldn't go to a store and buy an AR-15.
No.
Let's just be abundantly clear. He would not own one. He would not pick up one. He would not recommend it to anyone.
Wait a minute. He would He wouldn't call everybody to the church, and hand out AR-15s to the little children. Call the children, bring the children to me, and hand out the ARs.
Right. No. He wouldn't say. And blessed are those with a big magazine, for they can fire at random into large groups of people in the name of self-defense.
And it wouldn't be okay with states like Texas, where I live, not allowing taking the money for the federal government to give these underprivileged kids, meals when they're not in school.
Yeah.
I mean.
Right. Well, that's again, that's I think we've always dealt with the idea of the I don't know, the family values conservative concept that they were selling for years. That permeated a lot of things over the years, both and this is why Trump has come back to this. We're not conservative; it's common sense. Okay, where Rudy Giuliani called his show common sense, and he has none. It's absurd. No. But that phrase, the common sense part, is in line. We can't say family values because we have a pussy grabber on his third marriage, right? Who buried his fucking kid's mom on a golf course. So we can't actually use family values anymore. So common sense would be kitchen table sense in deference to Katie Britt.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about that shit.
No, I was gonna say, just bringing her up made me giggle.
You got needed a giggle, Hal.
Well, oh yeah. Well, again, I'm hoping. It's one of my missions in life is to try and get people to not wear green on television, just at least solid green, in a certain spectrum ever again.
Yes, exactly. Right. I saw when you were broadcasting.
You made her dress a green
That was
screen,
all over Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, I mean,
what did you put on it?
It was
I put the
Epstein. Yeah.
Yeah, Trump and Epstein on an airplane. I put the sexy liberal comedy tour ad. I put the Dark Brandon visuals. I mean, it does. The whole point is like that of all the screw ups in that ridiculous endeavor, that might have been the greatest one.
Yeah,
it's not even your party's color.
No.
What?
No,
like,
I know. What was that?
Yeah.
It's so weird. And by the way, I'm such a ridiculous person, but I made I was going to show this like later on, but like your thoughts on the lovely ladies at in Trump world taking over the RNC and promising that basically the whatever get out the vote thing that they initially had is dead.
Yeah.
At this point,
they're gonna focus on voter integrity.
Yeah.
That's what they're gonna be doing, whatever that means to them. I mean, which really means trying to steal the election from Joe Biden.
Yes.
They're going to try to find any way they can to challenge votes, to, suppress the vote, get people dropped from the rolls.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
who did they put?
Watchers.
He put somebody in charge of that. Who was it? It was that
Christina Bobb.
Yeah, Christina Bobb.
Yeah, she's their new lawyer, the main counsel. Which I gotta say, awesome. I'm not. Why in the ever loving shit would I ever be outraged or upset that the Republican Party is allowing themselves to be kneecapped by this dipshit that they put in charge? You buys your ticket, you takes your chances. Why? And it's so weird that the outrage is coming largely from our side. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, how could they? Right?
No,
Not Jamie Harrison. He was like, "Yeah, go ahead,
Right. Go for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they completely cut their voter outreach, the minority voter outreach.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of that it's all going to trying to steal the election.
Well,
Yeah.
again, why would you even pretend that that's that's your goal when it so isn't? And the other thing is that if they work, this is such a Trump thing. If they work on minority outreach, it means they have to work on minority outreach, right? And by even talking about minority outreach, they're driving away more Republican voters than they gain. Because you can talk all you want about the percentage of Hispanic voters or black voters that might vote for Trump this time around or what have you, mostly angry about border stuff because that's been ginned up and a whole conversation in and of itself. But more Republicans will go, why are we doing this DEI bullshit in our party when it's wrong and racist and wrong and I refuse. And they're not look at Nikki Haley's presidential chances. There's 70% of that party is not going to vote for a woman, much less a woman of color.
Oh my God, no, they were never going to vote for her.
No.
So why would you do minority outreach if you don't want them? Look at fucking Tucker Carlson's cringe every time they would talk about the black voters that Trump was getting or the Blacks for Trump dude that was standing behind him.
Yeah.
Like it was like, black voters really like Trump now. They're going to show up at the fucking fundraisers. Barf, barf. Like you could tell he was just panicking.
I think that's been overblown anyway. I don't think there's that many.
No.
And I know they say that black men are moving towards Trump, but I was listening to Rowan Martin and he had some woman on from some polling group that just says black voters, and she says it's not true from her polling, and they only
of course not
polling black people in swing states. It's still the same. It's about 12%, which it was in 2020,
right?
And I think it's about a percentage difference from 2016.
It's fucking nonsense.
Yeah,
it's nonsense. And the idea, by the way, that you want, it's kind of like and I got to say, this is the on our side of the aisle, this is where we can handle and deal with some things or whatever. But that whole uncommitted bullshit in Minneapolis and Michigan.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
And I'm like, you guys are really gonna even play footsie. You've got a president who's having the military build a floating pier to get resources to the Palestinian people that is called Netanyahu a bad guy on an absolutely on purpose, accidental open mic. Schumer coming out afterwards. This is a strategy. The fucking White House has had it. He hung up on him in fucking December. Biden hung up on, and everybody was like, "Oh dear, how dare he?" And I mean, this is December, October, just a couple of months away, and he was like, "Fuck you, bam," and yet. You're going to have, and they're trying to work this out. We don't own that country. We can't control that country. And we're not going to just let a bunch of civilians die because of Netanyahu and let him leverage that. Otherwise, we'd be just like the Russians in that situation. I'm going to believe that a bunch of these motherfuckers are uncommitted about voting for Joe Biden. And they're going to vote for Donald Trump, who says you have to finish the problem, which means flatten Gaza and take it over. Kill those fucking people. That's what he means. And what's he going to do? Kick in another Muslim ban?
Right. Right.
I know.
Yeah. Well, I told Anita about this. So over the weekend, I went with Natalie Ziemba.
Right.
She
so
she's a city councilwoman, right? In Woodstock. And so we went, she, was like, hey, come on out. She's a part of the committee. So
we love Nat.
Paid the price of admission, and then Richard Chu is with his lovely wife, and he told this story on Monday. But what happened was, so Jan Schakowsky was there to speak, right? Okay, so first of all, women in McHenry County here in Illinois, they're marginalized already. They are truly in, their little blue dots. And so this is a big deal, and they had great turnout. And they had Jan Schakowsky, who her district map was just kind of rerouted to include parts of McHenry County. But anyway, so great, I mean, it was really strong. It started out really strong, and then Jan got up to talk, and one after the other, I lost count at about 8 protesters. One by one stood up and started screaming at her, and she's like, they're at my house. She said, I called for a ceasefire. And back in November, she called for a ceasefire.
Right.
And it's like, and I was like, you guys are misdirecting this.
Right.
Okay?
I mean,
the wrong people.
Yeah, a big portion of those folks are rape apologists and are horrible people who are actually defending what was done because they think it is a valid way of articulating the fight that's gone on there forever. And when those folks say, free Palestine, they mean the elimination of Israel. And if you corner them on it, that's what they mean. And they don't believe Israel should have ever existed, which is then I got news for you. There are a bunch of countries that completely agree with you. Iran, Saudi Arabia, exactly. So let's not.
They don't protest Hamas.
Right. No, not at all. Well, I would argue, like, where are these people, demanding that the hostages be released so that this fighting stops? Because it would. If they released all the hostages, the entire international pressure would be on Israel to stop. Period. Right. It'd be that easy, right? Yes. The second part is, and I have to say, like, they believing that, like, somebody can commit sexual assault as a political act is so maddeningly, bizarrely grotesque and this, maybe it goes to this idea that rape is about power, and that's why we've talked about it for the last few years, that they don't recognize the sexual prurient aspect of rape, and they've completely nullified that part of it, which is, I got news for you, as a male, 95% of it. I don't give a fuck what any of these guys, like, he wants to overpower. No, he also wants to orgasm in someone against their will. So fuck off with this nonsense that it's all about power. It ain't. Right. And the idea that they want to nullify the sexual aspect of it basically gives these guys a pass. Right. Nobody gets a boner thinking about something politically that went wrong 3 years ago. It's not how it works.
Yeah. Right. It doesn't matter anyway. You shouldn't be using, sexual violence as a tool of war.
But that's what I would say, that why are those folks not saying, we call on Hamas to say, never use sexual assault in warfare ever again. Like, that would be honestly a simple call. Like, it seems obvious. Even a UN resolution about the use of sexual violence, must be amongst the other. It is obviously a violation of of the rules of war and what have you. But so are a lot of things. But they still, and again, there's been I want to say hundreds of UN resolutions against Israel in these, over the years. None against Hamas. Zero. Right. And you could go a long way towards solving this by just saying, we want to at least say that. At least say that. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Nope. Anita, you were going to say something about the latest
UN. No, I was just going to say that UN, the UN resolutions are not calling for, they're not saying that Israel has a right to defend itself, and they're not denouncing Hamas. Yeah. And that is why the United States has not signed on to these. Yeah. People do not, and the release of the hostages, that was an important point too. Yeah. It doesn't call for the release of the hostages. Yeah.
Right.
There will be no peace until they release the hostages.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like you want a ceasefire, but they get to keep hostages. I don't even know why that would be. Why any sane person would not just have that part and parcel be hold the entire conversation. To the entire conversation. Like, hostages go home, return the remains of the ones that were killed. Right. And Israel releases prisoners that are like, let's say, the women and the children, anybody underage and anybody who wasn't on trial directly for murder or a particular act in that regard. Send them home. Then we have an international group come in to keep the peace while Gaza is rebuilt, and work with the PA and the PLO or whoever's left over in the West Bank that's kept it relatively positive. For a while, get them to reconstruct what's inside Hamas. And America, the Biden administration just put sanctions on settlers that were encroaching on areas of the West Bank. They don't who did that. You don't hear that news everywhere. No. That's true, right?
No, I think that's the real problem is the West Bank. I mean, Gaza is run by Hamas. It's been run by Hamas for 17 years. The problems they have are because of the government they have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and Hamas using the illusion of peace.
Yeah. Well, and what do you think about like groups like, Code Pink? Because honestly, oh
my God.
the day of
Originally, I got to say, I was 100% for them. That's the thing. And a lot of times, the peace movement.
They were protesting the Iraq War.
Right. As was I. Right.
Yeah.
But again, you can. It's not even quite the enemy of my enemy is my friend situation. It wasn't even that. I thought in many ways, as naive as I was back in the day, that we were all protesting for the same reasons. That everybody was like, war is bad. Yeah. This war was not for any positive reason. It's based on a lie. I think it's bullshit. I think it's violence for violence sake. And I think the conservatives especially were pushing this. And I'm not for it, and not in my name, and no blood for oil. And that I all agreed with that. But but you realize after a while that you're standing next to people who are like, we must end the American imperial experiment, and therefore the American government must be torn down. You're like, what the fuck are you? What?
And at the same time,
you're gonna wait a minute.
Protesting Ukraine defending itself.
Yes.
Yes. So, same people.
But this is what I was telling Anita, Hal, that I've noticed. If you go on their Twitter feed, forever it was get out of Ukraine, stop the war in Ukraine.
Right. Well, that's where they got co-opted, I think, because a lot of these that happened in the '60s. So the '60s, the peacenik movement started up, and I think it was genuine. People pushing back against the Vietnam War were horrified by what they were seeing on their TV 100%. Screens. You can argue about whether or not they were being manipulated by that in many ways because they didn't see the other side of it. They didn't see, again, Seymour Hersh's reporting on the My Lai massacre is atrocious. It's stolen valor from other reporters. He didn't come up with that story. He defended. Yeah, he actually did his interview with one of the guys who was involved in the massacre and didn't interview the guys who fucking stopped it. Our guys who landed their helicopters in between civilians and the encroaching guys who were killing people and said, we're going to fire on our own soldiers if these guys take one step further. Those are the guys that stopped it. He didn't interview those fucking guys because that wasn't the point. So there was a hijacking of the peace movement. And the Russians did it specifically. They worked very hard at changing the story, getting into it because, open-minded people and open-hearted people are easy targets.
Yep.
And they built a machinery and figured out how to do it. By the way, they're not alone in this. That's what Manson did. Manson played hippie to create chaos. Manson played hippie to create a racist civil war. That's what he wanted.
That's what he really wanted. Yep. Yeah.
Right. That's exactly what he wanted. But he was basing his entire appeal on this pseudo peacenik, long hair, free love idea. He hijacked free love and used it. And that should be what I think people need to be aware of. Know that, and this is, I call it weaponized empathy. They take your empathy, your genuine caring, and they weaponize it against you.
Yes.
Yeah. They did the same thing with the Iraq, because I remember there's a lot of people who thought were allies because they were with us against the Iraq War.
Right.
And then it turns out they were just against us. They were just with us because they were against America.
Right. And they and many of them either didn't vote, so what the fuck am I even having a conversation with you about? Yeah. Or they voted for Bush, or they would later become Tea Partiers. They voted as Tea Partiers. They voted against the ACA. They articulate they hated the ACA as a giveaway to the insurance companies. Right. Because fuck the 24 million people who will get insurance who will live because of it. Because if we don't get everything, nobody gets anything. It's the TYT methodology. It's been around for a long time. They weaponize empathy. Do this they're not doing enough, so let's not do anything at all. That's what the fucking maggots are doing in Congress right now.
Exactly.
That's what the border bill argument is.
Yeah, it's the same mentality. It really is. Yeah. But, like with the whole thing in Ukraine, so they were protesting outside of Bernie Sanders' office, right? They're calling for them to negotiate and stop the war and all this other stuff. Go protest against the Russian.
Why aren't you in front of the Russian embassy?
Exactly. Yeah. Go there. That's how it ends. He gets the hell out. But what's happened, Hal, is that they shifted. Since Gaza started, Now
Right.
there's not
Now
one
it's all about
mention
Gaza.
about Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
all
yeah.
about Gaza.
Well, if there is, it comes from Matt Gaetz or
Mhm.
Boebert or those assholes who are
Yeah.
still
It's just
they're
they're just anti-American. Is what they are.
yes
Mhm.
right.
They're
Yeah.
always going to side
They
against
won't
them.
live anywhere else. By the way,
Right.
this is what I would call like the Jimmy Dore millionaire Marxists. They're like, or Hamas Abi, whoever, what everybody's calling him right now, Hassan Piker,
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Schenk's nephew,
Yeah.
who are like America sucks and deserve 9/11 and we're responsible for all the awful in the world. And like, there's a huge difference. There is a huge difference between saying America has done some bad in the world, and we need to fix it over time, and the Republican response, America love it or leave it. Like, no, I love loving something also means making it as good as it can possibly be, sticking with
Making
it,
it better.
Right.
building on its potential, right? That's love to me. Whereas these guys are like, if you criticize it, get the fuck out. There's a huge difference even between articulating that and saying, I live in the country that is responsible for all the awful in the world. If it
I know.
ceased to exist, it would the world would become a magical, peaceful place all of a sudden.
Mhm.
And the nerve to fucking stay there.
Yeah. Yes. And with all its flaws and and right now it's like like you said, they weaponize our goodness against us. They refer to us as unpatriotic because we are protesting, when protest is the most American thing that you can do, right? The most American thing. And they tried to like vilify us protesting every time since, George Floyd. And then you have these people that came to protest at this McHenry County women's event, right?
Right.
Okay, you have a right to protest, and that's what's beautiful about this country. What do they think is going to happen if Trump gets in? That protest, that right to protest, assemble, that's out. It's gone.
Well, I would argue.
They're also pissing off their would-be allies.
Yes. Yeah. Everybody in that room is an ally. Everybody in that room wants
Here's the thing, though. I would argue the sheer fact that they showed up to protest about this particular issue at a gathering of women in politics because there aren't enough, and that's a particular goal that has not been reached, that they went there.
Yes.
Is similar to why they're outside of Bernie Sanders' office instead of outside the Russian embassy. It's not about the actual issue they're selling. I mean, there may be a mass of people in them that are bullshitted and have drank some of their own version of the Kool-Aid and are following whatever group is pretend like the Code Pink crowd that are pretending to be against this thing, and they like they've had their empathy weaponized.
Yes.
But you should have a sort of a come to what the fuck moment when you're standing outside a gathering of women in politics who are trying to get more women involved in politics, and you're standing out protesting them.
Yes.
Instead of like any of us would be in front. I mean, I got news for you. There are buildings in Chicago that are owned by Russian oligarchs. There are buildings in Chicago that have apartments where Russian rich people keep their fucking family in the comfort and of the bosom of America, and engage in crypto schemes and all kinds of shit to launder money through the United States every fucking day, have been there for decades. They're not outside that person's building. They're not pointing that shit out. They're in front of a bunch of women trying to get more women elected to office when we don't have enough women in elected office. Like, fuck off.
Right. Yeah, it was I actually said to one of them, I'm like, go to Mar-a-Lago. He wants to turn guys into a parking lot. Okay, what are you doing? Because and like a lot of people were like, well, she's a Jewish, representative. She's a woman. She's and she's a Jew, and that's why they're targeting her.
Because she's a Jew, not because. And by the way, what do you think? Jews have a red phone to Netanyahu's office, or have a red phone to fucking Israel, or are more on the hook for it? Holy fuck! How about this?
Anti-Semitism.
Here's a good example. Why the fuck aren't any of them protesting outside of a black alderman's office because of what the Sudanese government and the RSF are doing in Sudan and Darfur right now?
Exactly.
That tells you who the fuck they are. But he's black. He's an African American. So
there you go. There you go.
Why doesn't he call the Sudanese government and the RSF and tell them to knock it off? I'll tell you why. Because none of those people standing outside of that office protesting give a rat fuck about any black person who's dying in Sudan right now.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there's a good portion of, I would argue.
Palestinians. They're just, it's not helping them. It just frustrates me so much.
Right. It's horrible. It is and the weird thing is I don't know that anybody around them is even bringing that part up.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like to them about that. Like none of them. I brought up the what's going on in Sudan right now, and there's all sorts of movements. Blinken and his group have been working behind the scenes to try and stop the fighting in Sudan as well, while all this other shit's going.
Yes.
An equal number of dead, if not more.
Yep.
We're seeing another Darfur. We're seeing effectively another Rwandan massacre happening there.
An actual genocide, not like
yes.
This is another thing that really gets on.
Absolutely.
Constantly call it a genocide. It is not a genocide. It is war.
Yes.
I mean, terrible what's happening to a lot of innocent civilians. But war, that's what happens in war. I hate to say it like that.
There is no genocide. Look, there is no genocide in the world that could happen where you drop 44,000 bombs, kill 30,000 people in the most densely populated place on Earth with over 2.4 million people in it, jammed in like sardines. You drop 44,000 bombs, you only kill 30,000 people only. Where the death toll is, I mean, I don't even know how you drop those kind of bombs in that kind of a space and not kill half of the people, 1 million people, especially, even if you weren't trying to genocide the group or whatever. There is no situation where this qualifies as a genocide on any measure. And the fact, they're trying to cheapen the word so that they can undermine the Holocaust. That's part of it. It's like,
the Holocaust, Rwanda, all these other real actual genocides.
Real actual genocides. And they're like, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, those people do that kind of thing. Like, that's their response to the Sudanese massacre. It's what their response to Rwanda is. It's what their response to, after they outlived the Boko Haram bring our girls home thing. There's been, in the last 2 years, there's been as many girls kidnapped in that area as there were back then, just in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
By the way, the U.S. military's in there trying to get them back. We're working with UN forces. Everybody's operating under the radar. Trump pulled them out.
Yes.
Remember that shit? He pulled them out. Why are we even in there? I'll tell you why we're in there. Because we're trying to help save a couple of hundred girls who've been abducted to be war brides.
Right.
The whole world is I mean, if Trump actually got into the White House again,
Good
I mean,
Lord.
the whole world would be destabilized.
Yep, and that's what they want. I mean, do you think, well, I should ask you guys, do you think it's the Susan Sarandon thing? Like, because she believed that Trump was a good president because he'll bring about the demise of America sooner.
Yes. Burn it down.
So there'll be a revolution.
Right.
She won't be intended.
Right. Yeah, of course. And she'll be safely out of the way, just like the,
she'll be in the Hollywood Hills.
Just like the Hamas billionaires, safely out of harm's way, right?
They're in Qatar, not anywhere near where the bombs will go off.
No,
meanwhile,
yeah.
That was, by the way,
they're protesting the separation thing. Well, how did she think that happened?
Right.
That happened because Trump got in. Now there are children being
the family
torn apart from their mothers.
Don't pretend to care because you talked everybody you knew out of voting. Period. If not voting against, Biden or voting against Hillary Clinton specifically, you did that, and then it has genuine impacts on real human beings, and you're like, this is terrible. Like, yeah, asshole, that's what we were saying, and that's what we're still saying.
Remember the pipeline, Keystone Pipeline, and Obama had stopped it, and then Trump restarted it.
Yeah.
They were out there. Susan Sarandon and her bunch were all out there protesting. Too busy to vote for Hillary Clinton, and so Trump got in and ended up restarting the Keystone Pipeline. Right,
and by the way, and her, going against Biden the same way, and he's the guy who stopped it. And like, it's just, it's such a I call it rubber mallets and crayons. This kind of it's insipidly stupid
Yep. And reckless, though, dangerous and reckless, because
Right.
there are real people that are not protected. There are women now that are paying the price for the fact that Hillary
Yes.
Clinton got
Absolutely.
screwed over, and we have
Right.
3 Supreme Court justices
Supreme Court
that
justices,
just
we
took
want
away
them.
reproductive rights.
75,000 progressives give
Yeah.
him give him the electoral college and set in motion the end of Roe. And everybody's like, oh my God, we have to do something. Like, motherfucker, we were supposed to do something like adults years ago.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's one of those things like they want to treat it almost like modern smokers. Like, you don't know it causes cancer.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you shouldn't have taken up smoking, because that's what they did. They basically said to America, take up smoking.
Yes.
You should start smoking and doing heroin right now. That was their argument, because fuck it, right?
Yeah.
I do want to, like, we went over time, but it's a lovely thing, so I don't mind at all. And I want to remind everybody, True Politics is not only
YouTube.
Yes, not only on YouTube, but you now have 284 subscribers. So that would be a 20x, almost a 30x bump in one hour, which is that's how it starts.
Now I just have to figure out how to get Anita over to YouTube so we can start actually posting
well, you
stuff.
You can be on YouTube. Just the audio that we have.
Yeah. Just do it through Zoom. We could do it like a Zoom and post it.
Of course. Yeah, you could post directly to it.
All right.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
More the merrier, because we need to forcefully have this conversation and not be afraid to articulate this portion of it, because I think I feel, and this is my experience when I'm out and about. I'm sure everybody who's online who talks to people experiences this as well.
Yeah.
But they come up and go, "Thank you for saying that," because nobody else is saying that. That's it. We need more of that. That's
you say things all the time. And I think, oh my God, thank you, Hal.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously.
No, seriously. No, but I mean, and this is why we wanted to do it. It's not like Stephanie was joking around. It's like, oh, you guys are like the last carbon based life forms to get a podcast. But it's like, so it's like everybody's doing it, but at the same time, for the same reason that we listen to you and we listen to Stephanie, we listen to Frangela and John and all of these great voices, right? Maybe I don't know how to speak about, AI, but now I'm listening to you and now I have a little bit more knowledge. It really does kind of arm all of us to use our voices to have these real conversations, right? It goes.
And we've been doing the Project 2025.
So if I can, before we go, so Project 2025. If anybody wants to share this information, it's in print. You can just go to Project 2025, put Amazon, and you can just download it. It's 920 pages. And Anita on episode 9, we had Heidi, and I'm going to try and say her name, Byrick, and Wendy Vi come on, and they started. So these 2 women were with the Southern Poverty Law Center for 20 years. And then during the pandemic, they decided to start this organization. It's called Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. You can go to globalextremism.org. It's a great resource for anybody that wants to learn about the threat right now, not just here, but globally with the spread of this right-wing authoritarianism.
Excellent. Yes. And there's on YouTube, if you don't know, there's a podcast link on there where you can click on that. And that's how it shows up primarily. You can watch it as a video on there, but that is a great resource and a great way in there. You're at 291 now. I think we're going to hit 300 before we hang up. That's my goal. Everybody, it's at True Blue Politics with no E, TRUBLU Politics on YouTube. If you want to check out over there and subscribe, I'm fairly certain. Let's see if we can. I'll refresh it. 299. Oh, you guys are toying with me.
We are
299. We're so close. Refreshing. We'll keep doing it.
Just for this.
Hey, I do what I can. Like I said, in terms of information, 301, we made it. Yay!
Yeah, 301.
There you go.
Do we get 301 followers?
Like a medal or?
No, we get 301 subscribers. That's what we got.
That's right. and that's great, and that's ears and people you can talk to that will spread what you're talking about, and push back and argue and articulate and go back and forth, and it has value for that very reason. The democratizing of ideas is very healthy, and I'm for it. And I would always rather, vote against somebody than see harm come to them, because that's the beauty of democracy. It is a peaceful way of dealing with our disagreements, right? Compromises. That's why I think. That's why I'm against the word fighter. In stuff. I would like to end on this little moment, and I'm going to show it on the screen right over. This, you'll see, is previously, I think, the RNC logo. That's what I'm showing on the screen right now. And I do think, Laura Trump is making a lot of changes over there, and they have officially changed it to this, which is, for those of you that don't know, is they took the head off the elephant and just gave it a truncated like asshole. So it's basically it's got a prolapsed colon and no head, which is I think a great way to articulate. Yeah, right. So basically it's gone from being an elephant to a headless four-legged monster with a prolapsed colon.
That totally tracks.
It totally makes sense. I think it's a brave choice she made, and I had to go out on a prolapsed colon joke. But True Blue Politics, wherever you get your podcasts from,
or YouTube.
And on YouTube, right? Yep, with increasing subscribers, they'll be at 1,000 before you know it. I trust that it's true. There you go. And to everybody, I want to thank you both for coming on. Eventually, Anita, we'll have you on camera at some point.
Next time we'll have her on camera.
Absolutely. If you guys, I've been through all the tech hell that's possible in this world. So if you guys ever need anything, consider me a resource.
We've been there with you. We have actually been there with you.
You've seen me do it. Yes, you've seen me. Start out with the Apollo program. Blowing up on the landing pad, and to all the way to being at my own space station. Thank you. I appreciate it. So much love to both you, Karen and Anita at True Blue Politics. Follow and listen, and more voice the better. And we'll have you guys on sometime in the near future. We'll catch up, and there'll be lots to talk about this year. There really will.
That's true.
Thanks so much, you guys. Keep at it.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Love you, sparklers.
Thank you. Oh, that's right. Thanks. There they go, ladies and gentlemen. True Blue Politics. Thank you so much, Karen and Anita. You guys are awesome. Appreciate it. See you next time. All right, now I'll let them go in peace so that they don't have to, worry about. And by the way, if I may, point of privilege. Oops. Real quick. Blink. Images. I would like to. Let's see. Open it. There we go. I would like to wish a very happy birthday to my dear friend Dee Snider. Let me tell you something about Dee Snider, folks. Let me listen in. Dee Snider is one of those people that genuinely gives a shit. And he every time I've ever met this dude or spoken to him, I've always come away feeling better about the world and about the kind of people in it. And he is one of those people where he's a genuinely independent thinker, and he and I can disagree on some concepts and always do it patiently and respectfully and lovingly. And I can't tell you enough, like, how they say don't meet your heroes? Those people are assholes. Because let me, a little backstory. Here's a little bit of our Midwestern goodbye. My first acting gig that I got outside of Chicago my first professional acting gig that got me into SAG was a after-school special called Frog, and I filmed it in L.A. and I auditioned for it. My dad brought me out to L.A. and he was like, basically trying to scare me straight about the acting industry. He was like, I'll bring him out there. He'll audition. He'll see how hard it is, and then he'll come home and settle down and relax. And I went out there and I had 2 auditions and I booked both of them. And I had to decide, my first job, I had to decide between what gig I wanted. I had a series of commercials that paid a tremendous amount of money, or this after-school special with Elliot Gould and Shelley Duvall and Scott Grimes and Elizabeth Berkley, who played my girlfriend, and David Grossman directed. It was lovely. But I had to decide, do you want to act or do you just want to be, get your face out there and make some money? And I chose the job that paid me a fifth. I didn't do the commercial, and I did this instead. I stayed in LA. And so my dad arranged for me to stay at his girlfriend at the time. She had a friend who lived in LA. I rented a room from her while I did it. And her daughter, because I didn't have a driver's license at the time, she drove me everywhere. She took me someplace. And the woman and her daughter had a contentious relationship, to say the very least. And at one point, I woke up really early in the morning to them screaming at each other and her yelling to her daughter that he's only 17 years old and he's got his life together better than you do. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, fuck. And then this girl's got to drive me to work when her mom's shaming her with me being gainfully employed. Just fucking awful. And so basically, at the end of the day, when I would come home, the literal end of the day, not the metaphorical, I would come home and go up into the room and shut the door, and I had my Walkman with me, and I had 2 cassettes that I brought with me. No, I bought one there. I had 1 cassette, and then I bought another one. I bought the Crazy Nights single, the Kiss Crazy Nights single, which was a cassette single. It had, like a 45, basically. And the other cassette I had was Twisted Sister's Stay Hungry. And so I would just basically hide up in the room, no TV, no nothing, and just, it wasn't a Sony Walkman. It was I want to say it was a Toshiba, but it wasn't the sweet one. Anyways, I would sit in my room. It was right out of a fucking music video, but I would sit up in my room with my headphones on, like writing in my journal while listening to Stay Hungry. And the song, the whole album was very positive and rocked and was great and whatever. But the song Stay Hungry helped me get through that like awful that was downstairs and I was dealing with, and will try to appreciate my life and where I was. And at the same time, knowing that this is not an optimal situation. None of the other kids that were working on this were going home to this kind of a situation, right? And there's a song called The Price. And The Price is a ballad. And if you listen to it, it could not have hit more perfectly with what I was going through as a teenager in this situation where well, I'm not going to even articulate it. Like, listen to it or whatever. You'll see why. But it made the difference. It helped. It did what music can do. It inspired me, and it kept my spirits up, and it helped me, again, not take for granted the gift that I was in spite of how hard the situation itself was. And in many ways, D is, obviously the guys in Kiss, I'm a huge fan, that, is the root of this. But one of the reasons why I believe that we can, most of us, all of us, owe a debt to our favorite musician or a favorite band that we could never repay. We could never repay that debt because no amount of money could even articulate the value that it has added to your life, to your soul, to your growth, to your health, to your happiness, or even just getting you through the awful, just the blues, just bringing you through the blues. It's unequal. It is genuinely priceless. And no, they are not, Alyosha. For the record. No, they are not. So to D, I say happy birthday and thank you. I have, avoided for the most part when I've hung out with him, fanboying much. But he's a good person. And I'm lucky to have even met him, much less been able to speak to him at length. So happy birthday, D. I mean it sincerely. That is that, and there we go. Yeah. So appreciate it. Whoops. Oh, sorry. Wrong screen. I'm not starting over from the top. So thank you guys so much for hanging around. I'll see you this afternoon. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. Apparently Carol does not want to come on as a guest on the show. Shocker. So that won't be happening anytime soon. But I look forward to the next time she's on Glenn's show, where I will be shocked if she doesn't. Well, I'm not going to say anything because if I say it, she won't do it. It's like the end of Avengers Endgame. If I tell you, it won't happen. So, anyways, much love. Take care of yourself. Yeah, and fuck off out my kitchen. All right, Bendeloco, I will. Cheers. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. I'll see you this afternoon.